Hey, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan. Let's crash the mood.
Alright, our topic today is, what some of our favorite cartoons are.
Indeed. Alright. So, I guess we'll probably give, like a brief summary. And then, maybe some reasons why we enjoy that show. And, there are some things on here that, we both like. There's some things that maybe one of us hasn't seen as much as the other. And there might be some that, we would like more than the other. Or what were you going to say?
We disagree with,
Yeah, and it might be something we disagree with.
I just think you're wrong about a lot, so.
Agreed. I can say the same for you. And there is gonna be a certain grouping of cartoons, and I'm just gonna come out and say it, like the whole Seth MacFarlane line. There's parts of, certain episodes of certain shows that kinda make them stand out. Like, oh yeah, I really like this show, but at the same time, there's just so much excrement, just so much bullshit being spewed.
We'll get into that later.
Have a discussion about it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the format we're gonna do here is we're each gonna share a favorite cartoon of ours, or a cartoon we want to talk about, and then we'll give a brief summary or idea what it's about, and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say there might be some spoilers here and there. We'll try to keep it minor as opposed to major, but shit slips through.
And if you hear a cartoon you want to watch in the future, then it's probably best if you skip ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
And then just see if we're on to the next thing. And a lot of the stuff is years old. Some of it just ended recently. Some of it goes back about 10 years or so.
Yeah.
A lot of it's within the last 20 or so years. Probably last 5 to 10 years, actually.
Yeah, and that being said, that's the warning. If you hear something that you clearly weren't listening to the beginning, and oh well. But, alright, let's go on. What do we want to discuss first? Let's say, you introduced, so you pick one.
Oh, okay, I can pick one. Oh.
Yeah, go for it, man. I don't care.
Alright, well, I guess, I'll start off with the, one that's kind of, still going on, one that's gonna come back in the summer. Futurama.
Oh, yeah, shit, I forgot that was still going on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you forget about it, cause it only comes out during the summer, and you just forget about it.
Yeah, fucking Fox canceling, fucking Comedy Central picking it up after Cartoon Network did, and their wacky ass scheduling, but
a lot of fucking in there.
There's a lot of fucking in the show, to be fair.
Yeah, a lot of cows getting fucked, a lot of networks getting fucked, a lot of
robots getting fucked, and people, and sometimes people fucking robots fucking people.
I'm not sure where the cows came in, but I just want to say that.
There might have been cows in one of those episodes. I don't know. It might have been.
Random fact. The cow tipping is kind of a myth. Because cows are really hyper aware of their surroundings. But anyway.
So it's one of those just and
they're pretty
really far out there country myths, and it's not like the legendary Super Saiyan myth, I guess. But go on.
Okay,
let's discuss it a little bit.
Okay, so Futurama, it's about, Philip J. Fry, a pizza delivery boy at the end of the 20th century, who gets cryogenically frozen by accident on a prank pizza delivery, and gets sent to the 3000s. And there, he joins up with a delivery service of his future, I guess, descendant or future relative. It's not really his descendant because he doesn't have any children. Future relative. He meets all sorts of wacky people and goes on adventures. It's by the same guy who did the Simpsons, Matt Groening. Yeah. Is that how you pronounce his name? I only see his name in text.
Groening, or I don't know.
I never hear people actually pronounce his name.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, Jordan? Yeah.
You have a point. So, I don't know. But, I guess this is the gist of it. People would know it if they saw it. Which is kind of a point, I guess.
Well, it got canceled back in,
I want to say 2002 or 2003, one of those years.
Well, it got canceled by Fox, and then it became popular on Cartoon Network, right?
Yeah, it did. Like an Adult Swim run.
Yeah, Adult Swim run. Adult Swim resurrected a lot of shows back then. Well, actually, only a couple, to be honest. Family Guy and really in Futurama. It became popular, and it got brought back for a series of movies.
It did before I went to the full season. Some of the movies were better than others, especially the first one. I mean, that was really, really good. The third and fourth were really forgettable. And the second one, okay, I'm gonna tell us right now. I'm gonna spoil something major about that. So if you don't want to listen for a couple seconds, don't. Universe pretty much gets raped by a giant octopus kind of creature, something like that, and that was disappointing. But the movies aside, there's a bunch of seasons that came out after that, and some have been mediocre, and some have been pretty damn good, and reminded me, at least, of the old school Futurama. Alright, Cameron, back to you.
Yeah, well, Futurama, it's a mixed bag with Futurama. There's a lot of good episodes. There's some ones that are like very mediocre. I don't think there's ever been a bad episode, really. I don't think there's one that I've been like, this is just awful and I hate the show. Like with Family Guy, where I just hate the show now.
Yeah, there's been more boring episodes and bad.
A lot of people also like Futurama for the emotional stuff. Which I know you're not into.
I'm really not. But, yeah.
Jordan, you're just kind of I don't know, cold-hearted bastard, but so some of the...
Okay, I'm gonna let you continue in just a second. I can't disagree with that. So, okay, fair enough, go on.
Some of the fan favorite episodes are, Jurassic Park, which is, one where his dog gets resurrected, or Philip J. Fry, no one actually calls him Philip J. Fry except for a couple people, just Fry. Where Fry's dog gets resurrected and from the past, and he actually doesn't get resurrected. They find his dog is fossilized, and they're thinking about resurrecting him. And at the end, Fry, who thinks his dog lived a full life without him, decides not to resurrect him because he feels he's lived his life and they both should move on. And at the close of the episode, you find out that his dog never really moved on, and they stayed at the pizza shop waiting for him to come home all that time, and he just died on the street. And that's kind of a fucked up ending. I mean, of course, there's actually kind of a fix to that later in one of the movies.
Yeah.
Where he actually gets taken care of by a Fry that goes back into the past using time travel on Bender's ass or whatever. And
yeah,
that was the plot line. It sounds so ridiculous.
Well, a good portion of Futurama sounds ridiculous. Like when you describe the premise, it's like if you try to get that to most networks, they'd be like, "The fuck are you smoking? How much acid did you drop when you thought of that concept?" Yeah. But
another episode that the people like is the Luck of the Friarish with where at the end he finds out his brother didn't steal his name, and there's an emotional beat, and
okay,
and he names a child after him, and blah 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 blah. That's one of the fan favorite episodes too.
Like Cameron was saying, it's a mixed bag of things, and although I'm going to choose different words than he did to describe myself, I will say cold is in there from time to time, and that is perhaps why I relate to some of the other episodes. But that being said, with some of the episodes that he mentioned, while I wasn't a big fan of the whole emotional poiling, I did like that they actually did have decent plots, But anyway, back to some of the ones that I do like. I really like the ones that are like really heavy sci-fi based and a lot of the math related stuff. Cause I'm a mathematician, and then hearing some stuff where it's accurate, they've actually collaborated with mathematicians in real life. So it's interesting to see some things. There's an episode, where it had the Harlem Globetrotters in the future, and they were doing some differential equations, and they were talking about variations of parameters, a method to solve some differential equations, and shit, they were fucking accurate, and I enjoy that sort of stuff. And even though they take liberal steps with some other methods here and there, it's some, science concept. It is a sci-fi show, so I don't know. I have fun with that sort of stuff, and some of the wackier humor, and some of the wackier characters, and Wim Wham Wazzle. You gotta enjoy that.
Well, back to the emotional thing. I noticed, like, in the later seasons, they try to go back to that well, and it's not as good.
Hell no, it's not.
And, like the one with the, with Bender, where it finds out, like, Bender, what's his name? Hermes. He could have, like, gotten rid of Bender because he was defective, but he decided to let him go. He got fired because of it. That one kind of was, like, disingenuous to me, but,
Well, yeah. Because, in the earlier ones, right, it's like they were actually trying something a little different, and it stood out. Like when they do episodes like that, right down, it's more like they're trying to find where they are now. They want to do new stuff, they want to do fresh stuff, but they want to do some things that made Futurama great in the first place.
Yeah.
And that includes that mixed bag episode. So they try to throw in something like that every now and then, and it doesn't always stick. It really does not always stick. And, speaking of that sort of thing, there is a particular dynamic in this show that I feel like you could kind of do without, or they could at least make a fucking decision and stick with it. And you know where I'm going with this. And it's Fry and Leela. Oh my fucking god. I do, because either keep them together, keep it moving, or keep them apart and stay apart. Although I do admit that it is kind of funny from time to time that they realize that is ridiculous. And then some of the episodes, they're like, are they together? Are they not? They kind of make fun of that. But I would prefer if they stick. Oh my god. But, overall, I mean, I enjoy the show and I look forward to seeing the new season. Cameron, do you have anything else to say to it?
Yeah, before we leave, let's talk about, like real quick, what we find funny about it. Cause one of my favorite characters of all time is Zach Brannigan.
Oh my god, yeah. He is one of the funniest characters. Like, okay, in a lot of sitcoms, a lot of, just any genre of, medium, I guess, and TV show, you'll have like a stupid character in there, and a lot of people are under this impression that stupid is equal to funny. And it isn't always. I think it takes a special kind of writer, a special type of creator to create a stupid character that is actually funny. And Zach Brannigan, I feel, is it. He lives in a universe where he's celebrated for his, like, military prowess, and he's supposed to be a decorated war hero and all this, but really, he's a fucking idiot. Like, when you're first introduced to him, and he's like shameless, by the way.
What was that line?
Oh, I'm gonna get to it, because I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. Okay, so you're first introduced to him, and Fry, who's new to the future, he hears so many great things about Zach Brannigan, and they're talking about these things called killbots. It doesn't matter what they actually are, it's just like the name kind of speaks for it all. There was a war and there was killbots. And he's like, how did you stop the killbots? And he's like, I sent wave after wave of my own people until they reached their preset kill limit. It's like, that's great. And he's shameless, like, every time. And there's another episode where he has this hollow shed, and it goes completely AWOL, and he's like, last time the hollow shed malfunctioned, I got slapped with like 4 paternity suits or something like that. And then there's evil Abraham Lincoln is back. No, evil holographic simulated Abraham Lincoln or something like that. But yeah, he is one of the funniest characters, and he actually manages to still maintain relevance in that universe despite just continually fucking up, and it's just so well done. Because Fry's an idiot too, but he doesn't succeed like he does. Is great. You have anything to say about him?
I think you covered a lot.
Oh, my bad. You brought him up, so
I know we have a lot to cover, so you should probably you should probably say one that you want to talk about.
All right. Yeah. Damn, you started with Futurama. That's got to be a tough act to follow. Alright, actually, I'm gonna talk about, like, one in particular that, I like, and my little brother, again, he's kinda gone in and out. Like, it's, Ben 10. Like, he's seen actually more of the original than I did. I came in a lot of the earlier ones. The later ones. Alright, so, with Ben 10, for, those who don't know, and those who might need a recap of, Ben 10 was a show that premiered, I think, in 2005, like on Cartoon Network. It's an action-oriented cartoon created by like 4 people going by the Men of Action, or Man of Action, Men of Action, something like that.
I'll look up some stuff.
Yeah. He's gonna confirm that. But in either case, I'm pretty sure one of them is Steven Seagal, which is crazy. Like, he's involved in this. But anyway, it's a series that's actually still going, and it's kind of like how Dragon Ball is like set up. How there's a Dragon Ball, there's a Dragon Ball Z, and there's a Dragon Ball GT, shit like that. Alright, so with Ben 10, there's a Ben 10, a Ben 10 Alien Force, a Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, and a Ben 10 Omniverse. With the original, it had its set audience in mind, like, kids, as it were, you know, especially like close to 10, you know, like, guess 7 to 10, stuff like that. And the episodes were really kind of like, monster or crazy quest of the week with a loop plot and some reoccurring characters, many of which would appear in later ones. But then you moved on to Ben 10 Alien Force, and I believe that's where shit got real. See, whereas the first one, it's about Ben Tennyson, who's a 10-year-old, and he gets a watch that was intended for his grandfather. And it has the ability to transform him into any of the aliens listed in the watch, and he starts off with 10. And by the time you get to Alien Force, it's set 5 years in the future, where something had happened where he didn't want to be a hero anymore, he didn't want to wear the Omnitrix, but he kind of is forced to wear it again. And he meets one of his childhood rivals, and he teams up a lot with his cousin who he had a rivalry with in the original, and they go on a lot of adventures, and the main villain during those times, or villains, is like there's Vilgax and these things called DNA aliens. And anyway, there's a lot of things that are just like were set up in there that just made it brilliant and set up a lot of good things in Ultimate Alien. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to turn it over to my little brother, see if he has anything to say, and maybe add something later. But the current show, Ben 10 Omnitrix, is a step in the wrong direction.
Isn't it Omniverse?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said originally. It's Omniverse.
Yeah. Make sure you keep track of what you're talking about.
I said Omniverse first.
And it's Man of Action.
Yeah, okay.
And did you say it was Steven Seagal?
I thought so.
It's Steven T. I think you mixed this up. It's Steven T. Seagal.
I thought it was Seagal. Damn. Okay.
It's Seagal. I clicked on his name, make sure, and it's this guy with the goatee. It's this white guy with a goatee. So
that is very different.
I think it's a very different person. Yeah, but yeah, go
okay,
on.
Yeah, that is very different. Okay, yeah, lesson learned about that. And Ben 10 Omniverse, oh god, I can't get with it. I really can't. It's stepping along the version. Like, I mean, they try to, direction, my bad. They try to have the appeal of the original and the appeal of the newer stuff, and it doesn't work. It's awful. It kind of takes away most of the character development that has been seen over the entire series. And we're talking about a show that's been in motion for 8 years now. It's like, come on. What do you have to say about that?
You seem pretty... I didn't know you were so into that. Like, you seem pretty upset about that, Jordan.
Well, I mean... Well, no, I first watched the Ben 10 episode. It was Ultimate Alien, and I saw some things there that I really liked. And then, many times in the morning, I didn't always sleep the best, and they would have Alien Force on. So I'd watch that, and I ended up seeing the entire thing, and it was really brilliant. A lot happened that I really liked that helped the characters to grow and all that. So I saw these characters grow. I saw them handle mature plots. I saw them kind of cater more towards an adult universe. And even though it was a show that was on Cartoon Network, they're just like, fuck it, we're going all out. And then when you get to Omniverse, everything that I saw that was interesting, it seemed like it died out. Anything that made me want to watch that show, it just died out. So yeah, I'm a little angry about that because it had so much potential, and I feel like they should have either ended it at Ben 10 Ultimate Alien or went in a different direction. Like, there's an episode in Ben 10 Ultimate Alien where, the future Ben comes, and I felt like if they focused on the adventures leading up to how he becomes that version, I thought that would have been interesting.
Well, I've mostly just watched the original series, and it's not like I really set out to watch the complete original series and all the Ben 10 stuff. It's more like I just happened to watch the Ben 10 stuff in the background while I'm doing other stuff. And there's been I watched a few, I remember a lot of it was just mediocre. There's a few stuff that was, that was pretty interesting, like I think the one where he went to the future and man's future self, that was a good one from the original series. I'm not sure what else, I remember watching the movie in the background, I forgot what the movie was called. It was like he want to find the original creator of the Omnitrix.
Ah.
Yeah, that was the first episode where what's his name, Azimuth, was introduced. And
one of the most annoying characters, by the way. Go on.
And I watched it's like an episode of the newer series here and there, and some were good, some were forgettable.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm just not really that into it as you are.
Understandable. I mean, I came in at a different time. I mean, if I had saw the original, I wouldn't really feel like watching the rest of it or giving it that much of a chance anyway, because the original wasn't that good and it was definitely geared towards kids. And if I came into certain episodes in the later ones, I'd be like, okay. But I mean, it's just like that happened, it was on the same time. It happened to be up at the same time in the morning. So, I would give it a chance and happened to catch that. So it was a little disappointing because whereas Ben did eventually learn to work with his cousin and work with his old nemesis, in the newer ones, he has problems working with a new person again, even where it's been established in all of like the Ben 10 stuff that he learned to work with new people routinely. Like, if it was someone new, he'd want to train them. He'd want to help them be a hero instead of say, fuck it, I got it on my own.
Well, that's one of the things I found interesting. It was kind of like a comic book series, long-running comic book series.
Yeah.
Or even like a long-running Japanese anime series, where like, essentially like the dynamic, like in a comic book series where the dynamic would change every now and then. Where like, say like you would get new Robin, or like the original series, like the dynamic was the grandfather was the stern guy, and Gwen was kind of like sarcastic and cynical, and Ben was kind of like idealistic, but also kind of very selfish, but he would have his heroic moments. And then the dynamic changes in the new series where like, they're all kind of teenagers and they're all doing they have different personalities and there's a new dynamic, and then like each series has like new characters and new dynamics, and it kind of grows out the universe, kind of like a comic book series, long-running comic book series, which I found an interesting thing about it. I mean, it didn't make me like go like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you're noticing like, oh, that's kind of cool. And do you have much more to say about that, or not really?
Not really.
All right. Then I'm gonna add one more thing before we move on, and it'll be your turn to pick. An example of the difference in maturity between like Omniverse and let's say something like Ultimate Alien, and I say this because I really want to drive the point home. Like in Omniverse, right? Ben has he doesn't work with like his cousin and his old rival anymore. He works with this new guy, and he's just so damn stubborn about it. And even after he saved the entire universe at the end of Ultimate Alien, he has just so many problems teaming up with this new guy. He consistently underestimates his opponents. He overestimates his abilities. Whereas before he's more of an adult. Now in Ultimate Alien, to counter that, there's an episode where there's a long-running, I guess she's kind of like an anti-hero sometimes, or just like kind of like a really annoying villain.
Mm-hmm.
Charmcaster, she's one of Gwen's main, opponents.
Yeah. Isn't it like her father, like one of the villains from,
well, no, not her father, her uncle.
Yeah, her uncle.
She's raised by her evil uncle, and they go into, a background. I'm gonna spoil the episode right now. So if you don't want to hear that, I'd skip ahead a little bit.
Ben 10 spoilers, I know.
Oh yeah, all around. But, so anyway, in this episode, they try to find her after, like, she made some sacrifice to go to another dimension. She got trapped there to save their lives. Something that was actually, like, a good thing on her part. Like, she did a good act. So they eventually track her down, cause like, Gwen felt incredibly guilty behind it, and she tracks her down to this magic dimension. And when they get there, she's running the whole entire dimension. And, these people there, these creatures, they're under the impression that, she's there to help, and while others are more wise to her being evil. And she ends up sacrificing every living creature in that realm, including Ben and his crew. Over 6 million lives, and all to bring back her father. And when she brought him back, he was so distraught about it because he said that's not why him and his wife sacrificed themselves. they sacrificed themselves so that she may go on to lead a normal life, and her uncle kind of fucked that up. And then he said he could not. He was disappointed in her, and he gave up his life so that they may have their souls back. Now, that's a very, very serious difference from, I'm gonna be a whiny little bitch, Ben I'm talking about, and not want to work with anyone again, and I'm just gonna be a kid again. And that's why I was a little bit disappointed with that. There's a lot of development, a lot of crazy, dark shit in, like, Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. So, I mean, I enjoy those two the best, and I mean, in the future, I might give it another chance.
A quick thing, I know a big thing that another reason why you might hate Omnitrix is because Omniverse is because of the animation style.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna lie, that is a factor. It is a big thing with me. I mean, we'll probably talk about Spectacular Spider-Man at some point or another, and that was the reason why I had a problem giving that a chance. But like, I mean, I could get past that if there's a good plot. But the art style and Omniverse is just like, they try to do some weird kind of fusion between Ben 10 and the art style that got used in Alien Force and continued in Ultimate Alien, and try to create something new, something different. And yeah, it is a bit different, but it's not my cup of tea. It's too childish for me. Whereas in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, it was very, very serious, very pronounced in a way that I liked. But yeah, overall, it's a very, very interesting roller coaster ride, and as Cameron pointed out, it's like a comic book. So, I mean, that's my kind of feelings on Ben 10 right now. And, so what did you want to talk about next?
Well, the way I figure it is, like, we're probably going to save another episode to talk about the DC Animated Universe. So I'm going to talk about some stuff we're unlikely to talk about in the future.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to bring up Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I know you have not really seen at all. So feel free to just chime in with questions and everything and comments.
Very well.
Okay, so Avatar: The Last Airbender is the show that aired on Nickelodeon for a while. There's also a sequel, which is The Legend of Korra, which is, they're gonna bring out a new season pretty soon. And, maybe you'll check that out someday. I'm not gonna talk about Korra because that series is not really finished. So it could end up being a great series, but I'm not really sure yet.
It seems interesting, if nothing else, so far.
Yeah, well, like, the entire series just has awesome animation, which is inspired by all the different Chinese martial arts and stuff.
Yeah, and they have people called bloodbenders. That's fucking awesome.
Well, it's only really a couple episodes.
Who cares? Bloodbenders.
Like a special Halloween episode, so the plot of Avatar is essentially there are 4 nations, and each nation is based on an element: fire, wind, earth, and water. And there are people who are benders who have special powers that allow them to manipulate fire, earth, wind, and water. And the Fire Nation is kind of the main villain of the series. And especially the leader of the Fire Nation. And he essentially decides to try to take over the world using, his firebending army, evil firebending army, and mechanical stuff. And on a special day where their powers are enhanced, they attack the Air Nation, which is basically a nation of like monks, and they basically massacre all of them. Now, here's where the Avatar comes in. The Avatar is essentially the one person in the world who has the power to bend multiple elements. Everyone else can only bend one element, and the Avatar cycles between the different nations. So if the Avatar's water, then the next one will be... If the Avatar's air, then the next one will be water, and so on and so on. So it goes to the nations. And the big reason they attacked the Air Nation because the current Avatar then was air. So the main character, Aang, who's the last Airbender after the massacre. Hence the Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, man, they kind of figured that out, right?
He ends up freezing himself using his avatar powers when he's running away. And this is actually before the massacre. He's running away just because of responsibility reasons. He's stressed out. And he ends up freezing himself, and he wakes up, to a water tribe girl, and 100 years later. And by then, the Fire Nation has basically taken over a large part of the world, and they're beginning their assault to finish off everybody else. And so it's about each book deals with a different element. and he's trying to master the rest of the elements so he can challenge the Fire Nation and save the world. Are you with me? Larger. It's a very interesting world because you have like animals that are mixed with the other animals. So it's like the background's also interesting. The characters are interesting. You have Aang, who's the Avatar, who's probably the least interesting character. You notice that a lot, Jordan, where like the main character happens to be the least interesting character.
I do. I like to point out a few examples really quick. Alright, and just cause he's like the three big, like, animes I know from Japan, I would include 4, but I don't know much about One Piece, but I'm gonna say Dragon Ball Z, one of my favorite animes, if not my, favorite. We've talked about it before. We talked about it here and there, cause I brought up the Super Saiyan comment. But, and I'll talk about it again later. You'll hear a bunch of shit about that every now and then, but Goku is the main character on there, and he's probably one of the least interesting characters as the series just keeps on going on because he becomes like, just more and more less of a character. Well, it's more of a symbol.
People are more complex, yeah.
Everyone else is way more complex than him. And then with Bleach, Ichigo, he suffers from Goku syndrome like no one else's business. And everyone, there's a lot of characters in Bleach, and there's a lot of focus given on a lot of the characters, so he ends up being kinda in the background and just kinda, they're ace in a hole in a lot of situations. And Naruto, there's a lot of background given to him, but he's not that particularly interesting to me either.
Yeah, I know.
And his show is named after him.
I know you don't like Ted on How I Met Your Mother and stuff like that.
I don't. He's a dick, and he's the main character there, but all the other characters are far more fascinating.
Oh, I think like the main character tends to be bland in a lot of shows, so like the audience can like put themselves in his place.
But I never do that with shows though, For me, it's just like, it's this different experience.
Well, the main character, Aang, who's the Avatar, is kind of like Goku, where he's like goofy, but he's like powerful, and he has a lot of training, especially in the air element.
Okay.
Not in the other elements.
Yeah. Sort of like how Goku adapted more fighting styles later on, or, he at least could do other styles.
Well, yeah.
But he started out more with just like the turtle school stuff.
So
he's like the...
Yeah, there's the other two characters are, Katara and, Sokka, who are brother and sister, and they're from the Water Tribe. Katara is a waterbender. Sokka he's kind of the more clever one of the group. He doesn't have any bending powers. He later gets sword skills. But he's kind of like he's not like, I wouldn't say leader, because I guess Aang's more like the spiritual leader, and he's more like the planner. And he's also the comedic relief of the characters. So it's kind of like, he's an interesting character, because he grows up, because he kind of has to grow up, and become, kind of like the planner, but in the beginning he's kind of like a goofball. And probably the most complex character, who's voiced by your boy, Rufio.
Before you go too much into that, I wanted to say I was waiting to see if you were gonna say it, because you weren't damn sure was gonna. But like, Rufio!
Yeah.
It's a hook reference for all y'all don't get it, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, the guy who played Rufio in the Hook movie, in the movie Hook, voices Zuko, who's probably the most popular character and also the most complex character.
Probably because he was voiced by Rufio, but yeah. Go on.
Well, essentially he's the prince of the Fire Nation, and he starts off as a villain. Like Vegeta and like a lot of Nemesis characters and stuff like Kevin and Ben 10.
Yeah.
And essentially he's been dishonored and he's exiled from the Fire Nation. And he's trying to chase down the Avatar so that he can like reclaim his place in the Fire Nation. And so that's his plot. So he's got the anti-hero thing going with him with the villain. He has to decide between, actually doing what's right and betraying the Fire Nation. So that's he has complexity at least.
It's always a plus. You always need at least one.
Yeah, I know you don't have a lot to talk about with this series, but I just want to say this is a really good series. A lot of people like it. I think it's kind of a timeless one because it's set in a fantasy world. So I think 10 years from now, kids are still going to watch this.
Probably. And you're right. I don't have a lot to say because I haven't seen a lot, but I will say this from a little bit that I've seen. It was interesting enough to keep my interest. and the animation is pretty damn good, and it's very fascinating, I feel, because it's like, it's not Japanese, but it's got that anime look, that anime feel, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
It's really good animation. Well, there's a few seasons of that show, so there's plenty of material if you want to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, I may very well. I mean, but one of the main reasons I haven't gotten too invested is because if I did, I would want to, like, try to keep on continuing, and, like, I haven't gotten, like, super invested in a series that was so damn long, since Bleach. And
yeah,
that just left a bitter taste in my mouth, and it's, like, it's still fucking going. Like, this is,
well,
I had to stop.
The anime ended, but the manga.
The manga's still going. It's going to be going for, like, at least a year or so, and
maybe two. Okay, so
but that's another thing.
Well, yeah,
we'll get
anyway,
to that
there's
later.
a sequel to Avatar,
Yeah.
The Legend of Korra, which takes place after Aang dies in the future. So the main character died in the future,
and it's like it's far in the future, right?
Yeah. So they actually have like
he just had kids, right? Like it's about his granddaughter or something.
No, because
Or his
remember
grandson?
the Avatar travels from nation to nation. The
So
Avatar
it's
is
a different
reborn,
Avatar.
so it's an Avatar from the water.
Okay,
it's from the water this time, and it takes place 100 years in the future. Oh, I think not like 100. I'm not sure actually.
Something like it's getting close to.
It's basically like in the Avatar you see the beginnings of like mechanized stuff, and in this show there's cars now.
Okay.
There's like Model T level cars, and so it's interesting. It goes into more steampunk type feel.
Always good.
It goes from like fantasy to steampunk, because it's kind of like imagining you going from it's like the 1800s to the 1900s, where there's like basic stuff and people still riding horses to cars in the early 1900s. It's kind of like that feel that it goes from. So yeah, I think we talked enough about that too.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have more to the subject, but I really haven't seen too much. Just a little bit.
I know a lot of people like that, so it shows I want to bring that up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna knock you. I mean, and we did discuss like certain shows that'll be on the list, so that's cool.
So Jordan, what do you have for me?
I was debating whether or not it was going to be like a comedy or action show, but I mean, I'm probably going to, I'm going to talk about Spectacular Spider-Man for a little bit.
Spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular.
Spider-Man. It's just silly. It's just like, the song is just like, I don't even know. It's just like, it's catchy. It gets in your head. Cause like,
the first time I heard it, I was like, it's alright.
Then it's just like, it grows on you. Because, I don't know, it's like, fighting crime, spinning webs, doing something over your head. It's a nice little song, and if you actually listen to guitar, it's not bad. But I'm going to talk about how I came across the show and how, like, I talked to Cameron here about it, and we ended up watching that, and how it just it was amazing.
Best Spider-Man property, I think.
Yeah, it's about damn time. Because, like, now, there's been a lot of Spider-Man shows dating back to the 60s, because, I mean, for all y'all don't know, Spider-Man is old as shit. Like, he's like early 60s sort of stuff. So by the later 60s, there was like a lot of shows that came up. I mean, there's been a live action one and several animated ones.
And a Japanese one.
And a Japanese one, yeah. He's
with the spider robot,
right? Spider robot.
It's like a Power Ranger.
Yeah, it's like a weird hybrid going on. So, the one that I grew up, the one that my little brother grew up on, because, same house, 3 years apart, bound to happen. And a lot of people that are probably listening to this, like the age group, we grew up on Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. Like the early 90s, mid 90s, whatever it was, where it's like,
it was alright series.
It was alright. It was very big on guest stars, a lot of carrying in like guest stars from like different comics.
One thing that always annoyed me was like about that stuff was like when like the X-Men showed up, it's like, so Spider-Man lives in the same universe as mutants.
Yes.
And mutants are being persecuted. And Spider-Man's doing nothing about that. It'd be kind of like it's kind of like if there was a modern Spider-Man comic and there was still like racism, and Spider-Man's like, whatever, I'm not doing anything about it. Jim Crow laws? I don't care.
I mean, but if you're gonna talk about that, I mean, how often does he get involved in that in the comics? Like,
well, it just means there's a great injustice in Spider-Man doing nothing. Fuck that guy.
Spider-Man's a dick, but that's another discussion for another time. Okay. No, I see your point. It's just like they introduced the X-Men to introduce them, and there's some talk about mutant hating, and people are confusing Spider-Man with this, you know, being a mutant, but it's never really addressed before and not really addressed that much after. I mean, so if you're going to include guest stars like that, that probably should have been something that they should have talked out.
Yeah,
I mean, and they adapted several storylines, but that isn't exactly what I want to talk about here. It's just the basis. So that was the Spider-Man that, you know, we grew up on. Now, in 2008, they introduced a different Spider-Man. A Spider-Man where it was more about Spider-Man's universe and less, you know, about this stuff, you know, other characters from other comics coming in and more of its own storyline while pulling in a lot of new stuff. I'm talking about Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh.
Like, you didn't have a lot of guest stars. You didn't have a lot, like, of other characters. In fact, you didn't have any that wasn't really part of the Spider-Man universe.
I misunderstood you for
Fair enough. So now originally, when I saw a commercial for it, I had no real interest in seeing the at least with Peter Parker, he doesn't look right, and a good portion of the other people don't. It's like the buildings, the background, stuff like that, they look fine, but a lot of the character design, it doesn't look right, you know?
I know you don't like the animation stuff.
I really don't. Well, no, the animation was fine. It's just like the character design.
Well, I mean, I know you don't like that.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, when we're talking about animation, it's kind of hard to talk about that, because I guess like some of the ways that the people were animated, it wasn't the best, but you know, when you're in fight, oh my god. Okay, so that aside, I happen to be up in the morning like I am sometimes, and I came in the right episode is what had happened. I came in an episode where Spider-Man is fighting Venom, and I remember thinking, I'm like, wow, this is how a fight between Spider-Man and Venom should go. Spider-Man's getting his ass kicked, and he has to, you know, think of something witty to get out of it. And I'm like, well, if it has this level of fighting in it, and, you know, there's some nice back and forth, maybe you should give it a chance. So eventually, me and my little brother, we checked it out. And it's just like, it didn't disappoint. There's 2 seasons, and it's eventually canceled, not because it sucked or anything, just money stuff. And
do you want to go into detail, or do you want to do that for another show?
We could go into detail, like, real briefly. Like, yeah.
Okay, in brief, without me stuttering, basically because Marvel didn't want to pay Sony for the rights to Spectacular Spider-Man, because technically Sony owns this version of Spider-Man. Now Marvel owns the rights to animate Spider-Man because of some weird deal, so they got the rights back, but they couldn't continue Spectacular Spider-Man even if they wanted, because then they had to pay Sony for the rights to Spectacular Spider-Man, because Sony owns those specific rights. Kind of like how, like, if you did a specific version of Wizard of Oz, you would own that specific version of Wizard of Oz yourself. But yeah, that's basically it.
It was a bit disappointing, because it's like, it didn't suck, and yet it got canceled, and now we're left with Ultimate Spider-Man, but that's another thing. It's just a shitty show in Disney right now. But anyway, the way they had season 2 end, it wasn't like a cliffhanger or something. It just left it kind of open-ended. Like, if they wanted to continue, they could have. But I'll talk about some of the great parts of the show real quick. I mean, they start off, you know, Spider-Man's getting his powers, and you're introduced to a lot of characters in the first season, and how they develop, especially with the villains. Like, they introduced the villains pretty decently. Like, they show how they become the villains.
Yeah, I like that, how they introduced the villains episodes advance and like make them characters ahead of time, and so you get to know them, and then you see them become villains in the future. But
yeah, and they had some pretty well-known Spider-Man characters in there, some that really drive it home. Like, they have Green Goblin, who's maybe Spider-Man's greatest arch rival, but then again, Venom could take that same role pretty easily, and he's in there too. And he, like, Eddie Brock, the Eddie Brock Venom, which is the only Venom I'm going to count anyway, is introduced kind of like as a brother, like an older brother to Peter, and he's just like, he has shitty luck, and throughout it, he just gets more and more bitter, and he comes across a symbiote, eventually, which Peter Parker, in like most stories where Venom is introduced, Peter Parker had him at some point. They introduced a lot of good characters, and by the second season, shit got real. Like, you have a lot of characters that returned, a lot of new ones. You had, like, pretty much all out gang wars with super-powered villains, regular mafia-like villains. I mean, shit just got crazy. And there was just a plot twist that was brilliant, beautiful. You didn't quite see it coming, and when you do see it, you think, my god, the character that is involved, like the characters that are involved in this, and especially the character who created this twist, you just think, wow, this is a magnificently fucked up character. And it's great. And so anyway, even though I didn't like the art style, the animation was done pretty well. The fighting was handled great. And in addition to how like that, just fighting itself, like, you know, the back and forth, the hits, the blow by blow, how that was done, Spider-Man's wit. Spider-Man's wit was here. It was full force. Yeah. It was Spider-Man at his finest, using the wit during a fight, mind you. And that's what Spider-Man does, you know? And I don't feel like they had that in the old animated series.
It's definitely probably the best adaptation of like what Spider-Man, I think, is Spider-Man in our minds is supposed to be.
Yeah, it came across really well. It's like, it kind of jumped off the comics and hit that. And there wasn't a lot of like emo, like, bullshit that was in the 90s one. Like,
or Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, he wasn't trapped in a different relationship every week. And in Spider-Man 3, he was
Mary Jane.
Spider-Man, yeah? Huh?
Or beating Mary Jane.
Oh, yeah. He was not a domestic abuser.
Yeah. I would say this is closer to an adaptation of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic than the now ongoing Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. It's closer in spirit than that will ever be, I think.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and I can't even say that seriously, but the reason being is like with Spectacular Spider-Man, where it takes that spirit from Ultimate Spider-Man, and the Ultimate Spider-Man show, he's named Ultimate Spider-Man because they're like, you could be the Ultimate Spider-Man that you can be. It's like, fuck you, show, fuck you, you know? Anyway, it is one of the best cartoons I've ever seen, and probably one of the best comic book adaptations, like, whether it be movie or cartoon.
Yeah.
You have much more to say?
Well, yeah, this is definitely, like, I think this is, like, if someone wants to get an idea what Spider-Man's supposed to be, I think they should watch the show.
Yeah, and then be kind of bitter about other Spider-Man products that come after it. Although the movie Amazing Spider-Man wasn't shitty, so... yeah.
That's gotten a lot more hate than I thought it deserved. I thought it was half decent. I didn't think it was like a great movie that I want to watch over and over. but it wasn't like the crap people are saying.
Yeah, it was worth seeing, worth giving it a chance, and they took some risk, but it paid off.
There's some schmaltzy moments, like the thing with the cranes that was stupid, but I felt like it was a decent start.
Yeah, and as opposed to the whole like Spider-Man trilogy, they did a even better job of the fights. You know, they had him being like he was just like, his intuition was so great in the fight, you know. He'd be using his webbing more, doing all these crazy tricks. So, I mean,
yeah,
that was pretty decent. Yeah.
But yeah, back to Spectacular Spider-Man. Another thing is, it was developed by Greg, what's his name? Wiseman, who also developed one of your other favorite shows, Young Justice.
Young Justice, yeah. That dude does not have a great track record.
Yeah, so I feel sorry for him about
because he helps create like these amazing shows, and they get shafted by reasons that don't actually have to do with the show's quality. It's like, damn, dude.
We still don't know what happened with Young Justice, but we're gonna keep looking into that, and we're gonna talk about that when we figure it out.
We are.
Yeah. We're gonna do like some investigation, like go to the Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network. Like, what happened here?
You know, like sneak into like the studios, do like some Solid Snake shit, you know, and go on a whole mission, find out what happened. All right, but overall, Spectacular Spider-Man, pretty damn amazing show. You should give it a chance if you haven't seen it already. Let's move on.
I'm gonna go back a little bit to not that far. X-Men Evolution.
Yeah, that's pretty recent, but a little further back.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how many people actually like this show. I really like. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it, but a lot of people watched it and liked it when they were my age. But a lot more people like the X-Men series from the 90s.
Yeah, we could briefly touch on that too.
But I've actually rewatched some of those, and my opinion's kind of changed on that some. But basically X-Men Evolution was a reimagining of the X-Men universe, where basically they're all in high school, kind of like the original X-Men comic. They're all in high school, and the world actually doesn't know about mutants yet. And so they're trying to live their normal high school lives and recruit mutants to join them at Xavier's mansion. And they go to a normal high school. Like, Xavier's mansion isn't a school, self-contained school yet. And they're trying to live their normal lives. Like, Scott, Cyclops' jock. Wolverine's basically a mentor and teacher at Xavier's mansion, so there's no weird things going on with him and Jean Grey, so don't think about that.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with that. That's great.
And it's actually kind of like what the Ultimate comic did later. I never actually read that, but based on the plot. But, like, in the Ultimate comic, Wolverine ended up sleeping with Jean Grey, and
yeah,
there's weird. But anyway, we're gonna once we start in a comic book, once you start talking about comic books, it leads down to a trail of like, oh, then that ended up with the worlds colliding and super viruses, nanotech,
and all this crazy shit. It's like, did it count as rape if he was in somebody else's body? I'm like, it fucking counts as rape.
Okay,
but
it gets crazy.
That's another thing.
It comes to crazy.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, Storm's also another teacher, and they also had the rival. In the first season, at least, the main villains is the Brotherhood of Mutant. The Brotherhood of the Mutant Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll just call them the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And
this is what they do in the show, you know.
And
Mystique, oh my god.
Mystique is essentially like the principal of the school,
and kind of like a dead mother to the Brotherhood. Yeah.
Unknown to them, and she's also recruiting mutants for. Teenage mutants for her evil purposes, and it's basically about them growing up as teenagers, then having to become like the actual X-Men and do their thing. I like the show. What'd you think about it?
Well, I mean, there's part of me that wants to be like, oh, you know, I was a kid then, it's alright, you know. But honestly, you know, we're gonna be really honest here, and I'd say it to anyone, I enjoyed it. I mean, there was obviously some episodes I didn't care for, but I mean, I thought like the dynamics that worked out in the show, were pretty damn good. I mean, it created, in my opinion, a more likable Cyclops, and he just gets the shaft in most adaptations of him. I mean,
yeah,
he's through and through a douche in most things. Like, it's like, if he's not a douche, he's a complete and total geek, or he's a goody two shoes. And this one,
he can make fun of himself.
But yeah, he can make fun of himself. He gets when he's being too serious, but he's trying to be serious because, you know, he wants to, you know, help everyone.
Yeah, he's got a lot of pressure because he's one of the oldest mutants at the school. He's like a senior, I think. At the beginning of the series.
So a lot of people are like siblings to him.
Yeah, him and Jean Grey are like the seniors at high school, and so they're kind of like the main two leaders of the team, and they sort of mentor everyone else and try to keep them in check from their teenage antics.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to say, like, one thing I didn't like, though, was just, like, Nightcrawler in there. I was disappointed, you know, because he just so very much hated his, like, appearance, but it actually worked in terms of the show because, you know, he's a teenager, he's insecure, he hasn't learned to deal with how he looks yet. And
also, the world doesn't know about mutants.
The world doesn't know about mutants, and there's just, like, you know, teenagers can be pretty hateful. So I get that. It's just like I didn't particularly like it, but it actually worked. But a lot of the characters worked in that show, and Magneto is in there like in most adaptations, and like most adaptations, he's still a badass. Well, he's a bit dickish in this one, but a badass.
I feel like because he doesn't show up that often, I feel like he doesn't actually show up that often.
He doesn't.
Just so I didn't
actually get serious. You know?
I actually didn't feel like he was much of a presence in the series. Like, I didn't get much feeling for his character because, like, he would usually show up during, like, important moments or something.
Or kind of, like,
season finales.
Just to watch over Mystique occasionally because, you know.
In the background.
You would hear, like, this cool sounds or, you know, him using his magnetism effect. Like, yeah, like that. And, you know, you see some shit shake or some shit moving. You know, she knew she was being wild. She knew she fucked up. She's like, oh god.
Well, I kind of like, I think the X-Men series, it kind of starts, like, in medias res or whatever, like, well, it kind of starts, like, in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Kind of does, yeah.
Where you kind of expect to, you're kind of expected to, like, know what the story, the plot, like, I mean, like,
the general plot, yeah.
Pretty much everyone knows what X-Men's about.
You don't by now. You've been living on a
I feel like this one's kind of like we're not going to expect you to like this show based off the comics and all of this.
Yeah.
We're going to expect you to like the show because you like this show specifically. We're not going to expect you to know the previous stuff or like this character because of nostalgia or anything like that. We're going to try to make you like the show just because of this show.
And honestly, I mean, I think that was a good thing to do because when I am watching the show, it's like, you don't think about, oh, this is Cyclops or, oh, this is that. I mean, you use the names, obviously, but when you're thinking of them, you're thinking about, oh yeah, this is that character in X-Men Evolution. You know, they're separate, they're different, and I think it really works for it. And as much, I mean, if the idea is pitched, it does sound kind of awkward. Cause it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like X-Men in high school because like these days we're used to the X-Men just being adults, but it's like they started off that way, so it's not that far of a jump. And they handle it really well. You know, there's the typical annoying teenage stuff, but there's a lot of room for growth and development, and they handle it pretty brilliantly. And it stayed consistent, and I like the opening. I mean, damn, that was good shit.
But the series did shift later on, where essentially the spoiler. Why do we keep saying spoiler?
I don't know. We gave the warning, so fuck it. Let's just go on.
But anyway, essentially, the mutants get revealed to the world on purpose. Not by the X-Men, but by villains. And essentially, it's too late for like Charles. Usually, he just like erases people's minds and like, oh, that's the MacGuffin, so they don't remember those mutants. That's actually not the definition of MacGuffin, but whatever. Deus Ex Machina, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, essentially. And that changes the dynamic of the series because then it gets into, you know, the old X-Men territory of like, now these people hate them, like a character, I think like a guy that used to be interested in Jean Grey turns to like being a hateful man. Yeah. And it's kind of like I like kind of they set up that dynamic of like what was before and what was after.
Yeah. It was good.
It makes it much more tense because like if you're hated from the very beginning, that's one thing.
But if it's something gradual where you weren't hated before, now you're just hated on something that you are and you didn't have a choice, and it wasn't, you know, revealed before, it's like, it's all of a sudden, people treat you differently.
Well, that's, I think, like, that's closer to, like, X-Men, like, the metaphor for, like, racism and civil rights. I think this one's, making the X-Men evolution, like, making it, like, something that's revealed, kind of, like, closer to gay rights and...
Yeah. But, I mean, that can also work for race, too, when you think about it. I mean, we're gonna ignore the comparison between race and sexuality, but, like, say, well, you know, you're mixed. And, like, you know, like, say, like, some people, like, pass for this race or that race. Like, if someone found out they were part of another race, they might start exhibiting hate, and it's like they were cool with this person before. Like, they might be like, oh, you're part black, or oh, you're part white, and they might start acting differently. I mean,
but you have to admit, it's closer to the...
Oh, it's definitely closer to that, whereas, like, the 90s show and their initial preference was probably closer to race. And it's also a sign of the times, too, you know?
Yeah, because that's like, these people are coming out, and, like, we dislike them. But, so, it was I'm not sure how I feel about the last season.
It was weird.
With, like, Apocalypse and all of that. It felt very rushed to me.
Yeah, it did. They kind of zoomed right forward, even till, like, the end when they show the future. They just kind of brushed past it. But overall, it's pretty good. And you can't mention X-Men Evolution without mentioning Quicksilver. He had some funny moments. And he had a weird rivalry with, like, Spike.
Spike was an original character, right?
He was. He's the original character for X-Men Evolution. And they later incorporated him in
I'm sure you can guess. He was in the movie, too. X-Men.
I think so, yeah.
He was in X-Men The Last Stand. I think. Yeah. Was X-Men Last Stand? Or
it was one of them. It was either 2 or 3, so.
Yeah, and you can guess what his power is. Make spikes from his body.
Yeah, real creative. But,
I think the other original character that came out of X-Men Evolution was, X-23.
Yeah. I think so.
And now she's a popular character in the comics.
Yeah, she is. She's Wolverine's daughter. People will say she's Wolverine's clone. But cloning doesn't work like that, but that's another issue for another time. Well, it doesn't.
Well, it's kind of... It's more like it's...
she's his daughter.
We're not biologists here, man.
But we know enough to know that that's not the case. Anyone taking high school biology will know that, but
What's it?
Digressing.
Okay, I don't know. I don't remember the exact like process they used to create Air. Like, did they screw with his DNA? I don't remember what it was. So
It was some sort of bullshit thing, but
anyway, so that's X-Men Evolution.
yeah.
So Jordan, you're gonna have to give me another one for that.
Oh, damn it.
How many of these do you want to do more?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll do a few more. And we'll see.
Yeah.
Because we're approaching an hour here.
So we are. Well, you know, I mean, some probably be under an hour, some probably be over a little bit. I guess this would be one of those ones that is over a little bit.
Well, if you're sick and tired, let's just stop here because it's an hour. It's a good place to stop for you.
We're gonna go on a little further.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. If you're a douchebag, but if you know, you're probably like doing something. You're a shitty like project or homework or just on an exercise machine. So, yeah, just keep listening.
Yeah,
because we're probably too awesome to stop here.
and that is something we can agree